Mayhaps, yes. All right, so let's talk about this. Um, I want to start this intro off a little bit differently than I did the first episode, mostly because that felt just a little more like I was trying to be more buttoned up and I don't know, like professional-ish maybe. I don't know, like have more of a consistent, succinct introduction. And it just didn't feel authentic. So I think this time I'm just gonna riff for a little bit, and we're gonna see what happens because that seems to be the theme of this whole thing. Is let's just do some shit and see what happens. The second episode is with my good friend Elan Mendoza, and we met through some sort of random circumstances in terms of like me looking for a place. The place that I initially was looking at via Craigslist didn't work out, and I got sent over to live in this big house with a bunch of guys that were really lovely people. And Elan and I ended up becoming good friends and still are, like after having moved out of that house a couple years ago or however long it's been. But we've known each other for a good like 4 years now. And he's a lovely human who does a lot of different things. I admire him a lot, and yeah, we had a really good conversation. It's interesting just to have these sort of conversations that I've had a million times with close friends of mine, but now we're recording it. So I'm excited to see just what folks think about it and what comes of it. So please like share your thoughts and opinions and all those sort of things. I'm excited to see how it comes off to each individual human that takes a look. So let's see what happens, and I hope you enjoy. Oh, yes, and one more thing. This is what lies between a qualitative inquiry into whatever the fuck it is we're doing here. That's it. First of all, how does it feel just being here, like, and doing it? I don't know. Like, I know you have some experience being recorded, but not so much in this kind of setting.
Yeah, no, not so much in a talking setting.
Mm-hmm.
Just more musically, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, it's chill. I'm glad to see you're doing it.
It's been fun so far.
Yeah.
Only done one episode, and I'm excited to, I don't know, see where this leads, because it's been gotten some interesting feedback so far, and it's been cool to see like how different people perceive like the conversations within it. Like I'll experience it one way having this conversation with you, and then someone else will come in and be like, take that same bit and be like, I got this meaning out of it.
Okay.
And yeah, and that's like, I don't know, still figuring out what the hell this is.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the closest I can come to what it is, like all that shit in between that happens, you know?
Yeah, that's good.
Um,
It'll take some time, but it'll all fall in. You'll get your rhythm and really catch a stride and just go for it then.
yeah, I think so. Um, yeah. So I like to begin really broad.
Okay.
And the thing that I want to ask you just to kick it off is, who are you?
Oh, shit.
I was like, I was thinking of that question before. I was like, this one's going to be fun to ask Alon in
Oh,
particular.
man.
Who is you?
I'm just a dude, man. Just a guy trying to make it in this cruel world. No, I don't know, man. That's so vague. Oh,
Here, let me ask you, like, well, when I ask that, like, how do you like define yourself? You know, like, what sort of things do you think about yourself?
that's a good question. I've never really thought about it. I guess the first thing that comes to my mind is like a jack of all trades / master of none.
Okay,
That was like the first thing that popped to my mind, if that makes sense.
it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. What are you trying to say?
I just love that. That's what I'm trying to say.
But yeah, other than that, I don't know, man. I'm just trying to keep my head above water. Trying to, I don't know. I'm really bad at this, apparently.
Nah, you are doing great so far.
Oh, okay, thanks.
There's like, I don't know, like, and just throwing this out there, there's no like right or wrong answers, because I mean, shit, like this, what I want this to come across is just like a conversation like we would always have it,
Yeah,
except we just happen to have headphones and mics.
I
in
don't
front
think
of
you've
us.
ever asked me who I am.
I know it's funny. I think about that a lot, and like the differences between a regular, because there's differences, right? Like I would love to say like, oh yeah, this is just like us shooting the shit, but like we can't help but notice that there's cameras and that like someone else might
Where?
see this. Good. Yeah. I like that attitude a whole lot. I wish I could do that, but I can't. But yeah, like, so I am going to ask you things that I might not ask,
Yeah, that's fine.
but I also think that this sort of venue or this sort of medium gives like creates a new context from which like those questions almost become more appropriate. Because like if I'm coming to over your place, I'm not gonna be like, hey Lon, I was just thinking, who are you? You know,
Yeah,
like
for sure.
but here we can examine it a little bit more. And in the jack of all trades sort of thing, I love that you said that, because when I was thinking about recording this with you, one of the things that came to mind when I think of you is someone who I see you as an explorer.
I'll take it.
Like, and that sort of, and jack of all trades, I think speaks to that, because you are someone who I see as exploring a lot of different domains in life, and like just seeing where that leads. Can you speak at all to that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I've been asked this before, especially like, I'd say that I just enjoy learning.
Mm.
And when I say jack of all trades, you lived through it whenever we lived together.
Mm.
That, when we just talked about this outside right now, I'm very ADD. And I enjoy learning. So you put those things together, and my attention will be caught on something. How to do something. Like the last big thing I'd say would be making mead.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had mead once before, and I was like, this is good. And then someone convinced me that I should make mead. And now I have like 40 some bottles at home. And it's just like that. Like I did several months of that, and it was cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned how to do it. And now it's like died off.
Mm-hmm.
Also because I don't want to buy another wine rack. But
there's logistics to think
yeah,
about.
yeah. But I mean, it's stuff like that. Like I just get very involved in something, learn it, and then move on to the next thing. And you know, I see that as a good and bad thing.
Mm.
The good thing is like I'm learning, and now I have some bit of information about that subject or about that thing. So when it's brought up in life, it's like, oh, I can relate to this.
Mm.
And that's been brought up whenever, you know, I've talked with random people, and they talk about brewing stuff. And I'm like, oh, you know, I know exactly what he's talking about. The bad thing is, is that I wish I could just stick to something. And I have, you know, throughout my life. There are certain things that I've stuck with. But yeah, I guess it's not too bad of a thing, in my opinion. It does get expensive, depending on the hobby. It gets pretty expensive because, you know, I throw myself into it, and then months later, a year later, I move on.
Yeah.
Something else.
Well, I mean, that's actually, I mean, that's something that I very much admire about you. And like, that was one of the things that like, you know, we started off as roommates, but you're not always friends with your roommates, but that's one of the things that drew me to you as someone, because it's like I love that you stick with something long enough to really like get a perception into that world,
Yeah.
and whatever it is. And I'm curious of like, has any of your many jacks or your many trades, has anything ever come up that was like unexpected, to where you like made some association between like what you have been involved with and what was going on in the conversation? Does that make sense?
No. Can you, Regis, can you give me another explanation of that, please?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Sometimes I ask things, and I just like hoping that like by the time I'm done talking, you'll be like, yeah, like I've got things to say to that. Like, so that's what we're that's what we're trying to do. Yeah, like just so you made an example about like talking to someone about brewing, right? Like that's a pretty expected thing. Like we are directly talking about brewing, so yes, like mead brewing is going to come to mind, right? But I guess like in any circumstance, any conversation, anytime you've been just like out and about in the world, doesn't even have to be involving other people. That's something, whether it was, you know, some of the things that come to mind, you are involved in music heavily. You have done a lot of different cooking things. You make some amazing salsas. Freaking mead, photography, all those things. Like, does any of those things sort of come up in your day-to-day life in a like unexpected way?
I can't really think of how they would or how they have, other than just randomly, like that guy who's talking about brewing, just random stuff like that, where I'll come into a conversation about photography. That's like the big one because a lot of people do photography.
Sure.
Or music because we live in Austin.
Yeah.
But I mean, those are expected. Those.
Okay.
When I'm out and about, usually I'm at a venue or with friends who are also musicians, and so I can't really think of a way that it's like incorporated its way into my world unexpectedly.
Okay. No, that's fair.
I'm also really bad at coming up with things off the top of my head. Did I say that correctly?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
No.
But yeah, I'll shout it out during this conversation if something comes to my head.
Yeah, yeah. If it does,
I'll let
maybe
you know.
maybe something to just hang on to. Well, because part of what inspired that question is that right before we came in here, you were talking about bringing your camera with you everywhere and finding those things. And while, like, I feel like, with a camera, things unexpected may not be the right term, because it's like anything can be taken a picture of, just about, anything physical at least. And so maybe to make a more direct question would be to ask, what are some of the things that you have seen or experienced that you wish you had your camera there for?
Oh shit, man, tons.
Oh hell yeah!
And it's usually, it's nothing notable or specific. I'm a fan of lighting, so it's usually something where I'm walking and I just see like beautiful lighting, rays coming through tree leaves, or the way the sun's hitting the sidewalk with a certain shadow. Those are the kinds of things that like I would love to capture, and I wish I have my camera in order to do it. iPhones don't really do it, and that also like takes the fun of it away. So yeah, there's just tons of things. Also, being with friends, on events or when we're out doing something, there's a lot of times where I'll see what I think would be a good shot and wish I had my camera, and that's why I'm trying to take it everywhere. Like I said to you, I keep buying cameras, and so if I keep buying them, I need to use them. And there's a reason I keep buying the different film cameras. And I think film photographers would know, but when you shoot film, it's the film speed is best way to explain film speed is how sensitive the film is to light. So there's some film that is very sensitive to light, and that's going to be a higher ISO, and then some speed that's not, which is a lower ISO. Digital cameras, we can change that ISO on a whim. Film cameras, you have 36 exposures, and you cannot change that ISO. So right now I have 400 speed in my camera, which would be good for like normal day stuff, maybe some low light photography, but I couldn't really take that into a concert and shoot that.
Right.
So that's my excuse for buying multiple cameras, is that way I can have a camera for each ISO, and then you have black and white or color. So I have a camera specifically for color and a camera specifically for black and white. So that's my excuse for spending money.
Hey, it sounds like a good excuse.
I'm sticking to it.
You'd mentioned before something about it takes the fun away from it. Like, what's fun about that? What is the fun of
About
it?
shooting manual?
Yeah.
You have to think, which normally isn't fun, but for me, it's fun to think about the shot and to see it in your head. And this is all like quickly, it's all on spur of the moment. I see something in my head, like if I'm looking and I do see my friend in good lighting, I instantly think, how do I want that shot? this is how I get that shot, and then I dial in those settings and then get that shot. Hopefully, we'll see. Whenever in like a month, whenever I develop the film.
A little delayed gratification for you.
Yeah. So it's more fun to think about the shot, and you can be way more creative. I mean, iPhones. It's great having a smartphone with a camera in our pockets because we can capture those moments of like our children taking their first steps and random funny stuff. That's why the internet's blowing up with dumb shit. It's because people have cameras in their phones and they can easily take that. So 100% I love cameras for that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to photography, it's all automatic on our phones, and you can get some cool shots that way. But really thinking about the shots and trying to, because with manual you can get one shot several different ways depending on how your camera's set. So it's just more of the creative aspect to it.
Yeah, as you're talking about that, one of the things that comes to mind is that like with your phone, you know, kind of the colloquial. I have so much trouble saying that word.
It's fine.
But like
You said it fine.
The layperson's version of photography is like you're capturing more moments that where the detail isn't as important. Whereas photography, like all the itty bitty like adjustments and tweaks that you make to those things, that's a big part of the creative process and adds more. The word meaning comes to mind, but meaning to the photo, because those tiny details can add a lot.
For sure. And it's when you said that, it made me think I'm the worst. Like when a group of people come up and say, "Hey, can you take a photo of us?" And then someone's like, "Yeah, he's a photographer," and I'm like, "No, dude, I suck at like these group shots. I don't know how women want to be shot. You know, apparently it's up and you angle it down. I don't know, man." So in that realm, it's just a shot capturing a moment. But when it comes to like the photography I enjoy, I typically wouldn't, like, a great way to say it is I typically wouldn't take my film camera to a wedding or an event to where I just want to capture the moment and just, you know, all of it. I would take it if I didn't know the person and just wanted to like get some weird ass shots of some cool shit. Does that make any sense?
That makes a whole lot of sense. And it makes me think about like, yeah, it's like the personalization of it. It's like, yeah, in photography and how you're describing it, like those details and everything matters. And the layperson's photography, it's capturing moments, but they're more personal. That meanings lies there.
Yeah.
Would you say that it's like objectifying the world in general? I know that can be kind of an icky word, but like just like making objects out of everything that you see, including people.
Yeah. Making subjects.
There you go. That's a much better word.
Yeah, and I'd say yes, because sometimes, you know, I have a shit ton of film in my fridge, and I don't burn through it as quickly as I wish I could. One, because of the time, and two, because it gets expensive. But when the weather's nice, I do push myself to load a roll, have my backpack with my cameras, and a roll or two, and then I'll go downtown. And my goal for that day is to burn through a roll or two. And when you're in that mindset of walking around with only one objective, and that's photography, you start seeing things in a different light, and you start making subjects out of a bench or out of shit you would just normally walk by. And it's hard to put myself in that. I love street photography. I follow so many accounts on Instagram, and I love just scrolling through, and I have a shit ton saved too. But it's hard for me to put myself in that mindset when I'm just normally walking around, which is why I'm trying to carry my camera around. So that way I can get used to putting myself in that mindset. Like if I'm going to go meet my friend like I am later, I don't know where we're going to meet, but while I'm walking to whatever place we're meeting, I want to be able to like keep my eye out for that type of thing. if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like your camera is not only like a tool for taking the pictures and everything, but to like put you into that mindset of
Yeah.
where you need to be in order to like see the things that you need to see to turn it into like your creative work.
Yeah, and I've done the downtown thing to where I take a camera downtown several times, and
Mm-hmm.
out of 36 exposures, I'll get like 2 cool photos, and the rest are kind of like, yeah, that's cool, that's cool. But sometimes I've gotten lucky, and I don't know if it's my mindset for the day
Mm.
or just great lighting and all of that stuff. But
Mm.
but yeah, that's why I'm trying to carry it around, just to get used to putting myself in that mindset.
Yeah. Do you reflect on that? Like that mindset, like what like sort of things led to you getting those shots like
No, I wouldn't say I reflect on it. Overall, it's just kind of like what I said, to where
mm-hmm.
I push myself to go out and push myself to see in that way.
Gotcha.
Um, but yeah, I don't reflect other than that.
Okay. No, cool. Like what got you into like seeing things in that way? Like I guess photography in general, but like I'm kind of curious the progression of that.
Um, I mean, I've just always kind of been into that shit. Um,
Well, always like you weren't born like that. Like where did it begin though?
sure, I wasn't born that way, but I mean, it goes back to like elementary and middle school.
Okay.
Looking at, I mentioned I'm ADD.
You're preaching to the fucking choir over
while
here.
while the teacher is lecturing on something, I have a textbook open and I'm just looking at photos. And I remember one specific photo, and I don't even fucking remember. It's history. I love history, but I want to say this is Vietnam, maybe. It's the one where the lady's holding the bag in front of the tank. God damn, what war was that?
I'm gonna.
It's some war in Asia, either Vietnam or Korea. Was that me? Did I do anything?
No, I'm just hoping that
Are
we're
you
still
haunted?
still recording. I mean, we are. Maybe that. I think that light just went out.
All right. Well,
Let me go turn that on real
Yeah.
quick. I was like, oh god, did our freaking power just go out?
we'll be back after these messages.
Hey, there we go.
Oh, it's a touch thing?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. The only problem with that light is the progression is brighter as you go.
Yeah.
So it's like you'll have it on dim and getting ready to go to bed, and you'll have to hit it really fast so you don't like blind yourself before you're trying to go to bed. But anyway, lady with the rice in front of the tank.
Rice. She's holding bags.
I don't know why rice came.
I don't know why either, but they could have been full of rice. I don't know. But I just remember looking at that, and I am just huge into history. So usually it happened when a book with photos from history is in front of me. That's why I'm completely ignoring the lecture and fixated on this photo and what this photo meant, and who took that photo, and did they know? They just saw something. They just saw that shot, and they were like, "Oh, that's a great shot." I doubt any of them really thought like this is going down in history, except for like
Right.
Iwo Jima or something. But yeah. So I've always been interested in photography and images that capture my attention and lead me down a thought process of some sort. So I don't really know when it started. It just slowly progressed into what it is now.
Yeah.
I know in high school I took Photo J. That's probably, I guess, if we're talking about where it started, that's probably what really like fueled the fire. And I loved / hated that class. I loved the photography part of it. I hated the journalism part. I hated the fucking work we had to do, and the yearbook, and going to shoot the football games, and but it got me out of class, and I was able to like walk around. Our high school was agriculture based. That was our magnet program.
Okay.
And so we had a big barn. It was an ag program. So I remember me and some friends who were in that class would just, we had our photo J pass and we were able to walk around, and we would just go like lay out in the grass and hang out. We had our cameras with us. If we wanted to take shots, we could take shots, but it was that freedom. And I don't know if it was junior year or senior. It had to have been junior year. But that's where I learned how to do darkroom stuff and where I learned how to shoot manual, which was the biggest thing, I think. But yeah, that's probably when it started.
Like it went from like having, it seems like you were inspired by the pictures that you would see, because they would evoke whatever they evoked, or thoughts, whatever it may be. And then later on you then were taught the actual skill to be able to do that yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, my photos were shit back then. I mean, I still think half of my photos are shit, but yeah, back then it was just all trial and error.
Yeah.
And oh man, one thing I really regretted was being in that class. We had access to film, and there was like a fridge full of film, and it was HP 5 Plus, which is now like $10 a roll. But we had access to like unlimited film, and I did not take advantage of it. And now I wish I had taken advantage of it.
Now you gotta pay for it.
Oh, it's so expensive, man. It's a dying art, and I really wish it wasn't. It has this resurgence right now. It's coming back. People are doing it more, and you can tell because lenses online have gone up a ridiculous amount. Cameras have gone up a ridiculous amount. But still, I think it stops at a certain point. I think film is coming back. But the art of darkroom photography and wet printing is still kind of stagnant. And it's unfortunate because I was able to buy chemistry from our Photoshop here, Precision Camera. They had pretty much everything I needed. And then slowly I started seeing the supply dwindle and dwindle and dwindle. And it wasn't until like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, maybe a month ago, that I went in for some paper developing chemistry, and they no longer carried it. And I called everywhere in Austin, and nobody carries it.
Oh, wow. And
it's a pain in the ass because I kind of have like a little freak out because I know this chemical, and I know that's the one I want to use. That's the one I'm used to. I know how to work with it. I know how it develops. I want to use that one. There's other options out there, but that's not what I want. And it's unfortunate because I can't just go pick it up now. I have to order it. And I did order it, and it was left in my mailbox in 106 degree weather. This is like chemical that's, reactive to temperature. You have to develop stuff at a certain temperature. And it's left in 106. I mean, it was 106 degrees outside. I'm sure that community mailbox was much hotter inside.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just one of those things to where I'm seeing it get harder and harder. I mean, I'm glad film's still available, but the other side of it, the darkroom stuff, is getting much harder to come across.
What do you think is lost in, like, if that say darkroom photography like does die, like no one does do it anymore? What do you think is lost?
It's only lost for us who know how to do it, because you can do way more with Photoshop. You can do so much more with Photoshop than you can with darkroom stuff.
Okay.
But it's just the art of creating with your hands, and not software. It's different, it's I don't know how else to explain it. When I do a print, every single print's different. I don't know if I talked to you about this.
We've talked about it a little bit.
Every single print's different because, sure, the time I expose the paper might be the same. But, and this is on a very small scale, the more paper I put to that developer, the weaker it gets. So there's that. And if I do any dodging or burning, then all of that is going to be completely different, because every time I do it, it's not going to be the same.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I love about it. It's a pain in the ass, but like a good pain in the ass.
Mm-hmm.
I'll spend like 5 or 6 hours doing darkroom stuff, and my back is killing me, and my feet hurt, and I'm just tired, and I smell like fucking vinegar because those chemicals smell. But I'm able to like step back and look at the prints I did and see all the shit ones I did, with my mistakes and when I was trying to figure it out, and then the good ones where I finally figured out my timing for everything and got some solid prints out of it. So to really like it to normal people who don't know the difference, it won't change a damn thing. It's really to us who enjoy it and us who appreciate it and understand what it takes to do that. I guess you have to have appreciation for it in order to miss it when it's gone.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. It sounds like it's very much for you.
Oh, yeah.
Like, is any part of it for other folks?
I'll do prints for subjects I shoot, people I shoot. But I don't think I've given out anything that's not bodyscape stuff. I don't think I've given out. It's all, of my dog or of a building and that type of shit. So yeah, no, it's really just for me.
Do you think you would continue doing it if like it became just like unviable to do the darkroom stuff?
My stubborn ass would say yes. Because I don't like losing. I don't like, if I enjoy something, I don't like it being taken away from me without my input. And I really can't do shit about, I don't make these chemicals. I can't do anything like that. Eventually they'll go away. But someone's going to be out there who really enjoys this more than me, creating new chemicals, a new chemistry to do darkroom stuff. And I might jump on that train. Who knows? I mean, it depends on how expensive it gets. But yeah, who knows?
Yeah, that's a cool thought though, that like, I don't know, there's someone out there who enjoys it even more than you that'll like make it themselves or like figure out some way to do that.
And there's already people who are doing that, and I'm still new to this game. There's people who develop rolls of film with like tea bags and lemon and I forget what else they put in that shit. And they're not the best pictures, but it's more of the art form. They're not developing these pictures to sell or anything, but the shots you get from using lemon and tea to develop your roll of film just makes it a whole different, unique experience. You could have this trash piece of film that you just shot like your cat. You use all 36 exposures of your cat, and none of them were creative. And then you put it through this process of using tea bags and lemon, and all of a sudden it becomes something completely different. And it makes it way more interesting.
Yeah, that's just a little divergence, but like all of this is making me think about. So I just went on that solo camping trip this past weekend. And did you see my Instagram story that I posted the other day?
Yeah.
So like that first one where I was like, one thing I love about us that will fucking exert energy to get to the top of things, just to be like, look at that shit.
Yeah.
And that sounds like photography too. Like,
yeah.
You're really like exerting all this time and energy and all this stuff just to be like, for yourself, just to observe some beauty and something that you had to put in work to get there.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of fucking work. But yeah, I enjoy it. It's one of those things to where like if no one ever sees my shit, I'm completely fine with that, because I still enjoy looking, not, I don't want to say I enjoy looking at what I did, because I do, but that's not what it's about. I follow a lot of Instagram photographers, Not that that came out wrong. They're not Instagram photographers. They're photographers on Instagram. But I follow a lot of that, and it'll just be a random ass shot of like a car in black and white, and I'll just stare at it for like 30 seconds and soak it all in. And so I do the same thing with my shots. I like other people's shots better because you don't see how the sausage is made, if that makes sense. You kind of lose that lust, or that not lust. It's like recording studio stuff. You look at Dark Side and you look at all these famous sonically amazing albums, and you're like, wow, that's crazy, how did they get there? But if you were actually sitting in on the session, and David Gilmour is doing like 30 fucking guitar takes, eventually you're just going to be kind of like
Yeah.
So it's that thing. I like looking at other people's work, and I appreciate it because I didn't spend 6 hours in the dark room doing that type of stuff.
Right.
And I'm sure someone out there does the same with mine. Really, I have imposter syndrome because it's like I'm still learning every day. Every shoot I have, I'm nervous because it's like, well, my lighting doesn't go well. And when you're working with a person, you don't want them in an uncomfortable position for too long.
Yeah.
And watching you flail and try to figure your shit out, So, yeah, it's going to happen. I've gotten used to it.
Sure.
But still, it's one of those things.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like what a lot of art is, right? Like a constant learning process. Like you're never done learning about it. Although I guess that's sort of analogous to life in general. But when you're talking about you don't want to see how the sausage is made, I feel like an analogy that I draw with that is with comedy. Like it loses all of its power of humor when you start to explain the joke.
Yeah.
Or like...
or when you just put yourself in that a fly on the wall situation where your favorite comedian's writing their jokes and they're like pacing around in their house and they'll blot things down and then they stand in front of the mirror and try to put it all together and make it like flow. And I find interest in those things. I like learning about those things, how the sausage is made, but it also does take away some of that lackluster. That's the word I was trying to, I don't even know if that's the right one, but
I don't really know what that means.
We're going to go with it. We're going to say it was the perfect word.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
Because I have no idea what you're talking about, but...
But yeah, it's like I mentioned being there for a Pink Floyd recording session. Don't get me wrong, I would fucking love that. I would love to see and hear every little take and hear how songs came together. It's like the Beatles anthology. You hear the first versions of songs, and then you hear like a second version of the song, and you're like, oh yeah, they added that now, and I recognize that part. And then you hear the final product, and that's cool. I love that. But I don't know. I guess whenever it's just your stuff, I don't know. I just feel like that imposter syndrome or whatever it's called. Because even whenever I do like recording sessions, like I'll add some stuff in there and sneak it in.
Mm-hmm.
Like the harp.
Yeah.
And
that's exactly what came to mind.
like the harp. And to me, I just, I don't know. It's just one of those things where I'm like, I don't know if that works. It might work. But if someone were to tell me that like I told you, I added that harp, then it would just blow my mind. And I'd be like, oh, that's so cool. Like, what made you think of that? Really, it was me on fucking YouTube, like trying to find a harp in that key and just sampled it. And so it's how the sausage is made,
But that's so cool though too, because like those little things is something I was talking to Alex with about, like those little things, like wow, you as the creator like you could tell the story of like how that ended up in there, right? But to someone else, like that could make like that can make a world of difference in like what that sound
Oh
means.
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah. And
absolutely.
I'm curious of like, I mean, cause you are also a musician and like, um, that's something I'm so interested in is like meaning through sound. You know, can you like this is so broad and I don't really have like a specific question for you, but like
Meaning through
meaning
sound.
through sound in terms of like just um maybe I could a little direction would be like and when you're playing music or you're adding things, is that something you think about whenever you're doing that?
Meaning?
Yeah.
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
I'm not that deep of a person. Um, Feeling, yes, which is a cousin of meaning, I guess.
Yeah, can you talk about that cuz I'm
Well, yeah,
curious what
like
the how that differentiates for you.
I guess a way to explain it would be recently I've been listening to Mozart's Requiem a lot, and I couldn't tell you what the fuck that means. I couldn't tell you what they're singing about. I couldn't tell you what the story is. I just know how it makes me feel. The different
Mm,
movements, how I can, they're speaking in Italian and I don't know what the fuck they're saying, but I know what they're saying by the music.
yeah.
So to me, that's more feeling, and I'm not really thinking about the meaning of it.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think what I and hearing you say that, I think what I meant was feeling.
Yeah.
And I sometimes think of meaning and feeling sort of just being
Well, music
meshed
can
in a
have
way.
meaning too. It's just I've never been one to. I've never been a lyrics person. Um, there are probably still some Beatles songs today that I'll look up lyrics and be like, "Oh, that's what the fuck he's saying." I have no idea, but I can sing you
Yeah.
a melody in any Beatles song. I'm very much more of a melody and musical. That's a horrible way to describe it, but just melody. I'm very much a melody guy, and lyrics come very last for me,
Mhm.
which is why I can't write songs. They're all fucking sappy and really obvious. It's just very obvious
Like
because
direct.
I've never been a poet.
Sure.
I don't read much. I don't listen to lyrics, so words don't come to me like that. Whereas I can sit down and put some notes together and make it sound a certain way, and I'll be fine with that. But then I need someone to write lyrics because
There.
mine's more like went to the grocery store.
That sounds like a beautiful song. Oh God. As you were talking about that, one thing that came to mind was I remember when we first met, um, one of the things that I asked you after finding out that you played music and so because that's one of the first things that like Trevor was like, hey, you need to be okay because like everyone here is a musician. We're gonna be playing music all the time. And I remember asking you like, oh, like what genre of music is your band? And you were like, I fucking hate that question.
I hate that question. I saw a fucking meme on Instagram the other day about making fun of musicians who hate that question. And that meme was just very sarcastic because they put the musician in the light of like it's hard to describe what we do type of thing. For me, I hate that question because I suck at genres. I don't believe in all the sub genres, which I know they
Okay.
exist. Like it's hard to say I don't believe in them. I just don't care
Okay.
about them. So when you ask what we play, I'm just gonna say rock.
Yeah.
And other people are gonna be like, oh, it's like post 9/11 rock core, and I don't know what the fuck any of that means, man. Like
Yeah.
I just rock. And so it's hard when I get asked that question still to this day. Um, I'll just say rock.
No, but the like the post 9/11 fucking just got me. Like in you describing the feeling of music and the way that it sounds like you experience music through
Mm-hmm.
that feeling, like feelings are objectively hard to describe. Like
I
like
think that's why music is so important as a description for musicians, because it's like the fourth dimension of describing yourself, without words, without sometimes words, but for me, without words, you're able to express your feelings in a completely different way.
Yeah.
So
There's this, I've been listening to the audiobook of this book called The Master and His Emissary. And one of the things that they talk about in there is the origins of music versus language. And I don't know if I've brought this up to you before, because you seem like someone I would bring it up to just based on our conversations. But is that something like because I'm curious what you think of. Like, what do you think came first, music or language?
I could say something really deep and say, what's the difference? But I honestly have no fucking clue.
Hey, that's fair too.
Oh, shit. Maybe language. Who knows? But I don't know, man. That's a really hard one.
I mean, apparently it's a pretty, it's been a pretty long, has a long debate history of that. And
how the fuck's debating that? Like, seriously, like, because what's the answer? Do we have the answer?
Well, like, I don't think you can ever know the answer.
Yeah.
It's usually like pretty much everything that exists and I don't want to say this with any degree of certainty, but there's no degree of certainty in many of the things that we talk about, and that's something we, especially in the scientific community, you just kind of accept. Like, a lot of it's based on probability. Like physics, you might be able to say to like a pretty high degree of certainty that, like, when you drop something, it's going to fall at this speed, right? Like, because you can measure it with numbers. But like with language and like that language and music thing, it's like based on anthropology, history, fucking fossil records, like painting, all the things that we have access to. Or thinking about the functions of the things that are involved that we do know about. Like, we know about like the way that our like esophagus, throat, lungs, all those things that contribute to us having a voice, how they function, and like how far back we see that sort of structure that denotes like how those, or that gives us clues to how those things do functions, right? And one of the things that this author talks about, and he's citing some other stuff that people think about or write about or whatever, is how, and this is the argument that I think I believe in, is that I would say music came first. Because music and
you're wrong.
There we go. All right, conversation over.
Why?
Because we've had emotions and feelings way longer than language, like spoken language. And when I say language, I mean like what we kind of understand as language now, like forming words and stuff, and a lot of the theories go to like maybe we first like started communicating with sound, because like I can go or I go, and like that means completely, you can derive some meaning from that, like based on,
ooh,
you know what I'm saying?
Something just popped into my head.
Oh, please share.
We're really the only species that has language in our form, which is putting words together for meaning. But like birds, they sing. It might be their way of communicating, but I'm gonna switch my answer and say music.
Right? Like, because it's like, and you think of like whales, fucking dolphins, like it's all like communicating through, like it's not words and stuff, it's sounds. And like, and even in our speech, like I can say like have a good day, or I can say have a good day, like even in just like adjusting that like inflection and stuff like that can change the meaning of it. And I think that's a lot of like, part of that is sort of a little bit of the what lies between stuff, is like how we communicate those things. And like, I think it's important to ask those questions of like, did music or language come first? Because that can tell us a lot about ourselves. I don't know exactly where I was going with that, but I was kind of curious what thoughts would come to mind. But
it's a hard one. Who knows, man?
I think we're out of our depth a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
That's okay
Uh,
too.
I don't know that chicken curry, man. Can I get you to try something?
Yeah. I'll get some good crackles into the mic too, you know.
Some ASMR.
Oh fuck. what do we have here?
Okay. This is a salted dry plum. Fuck, I'm making a mess.
Am I supposed to suck on it? I started chewing on it. I was like, that doesn't
Don't
work.
chew on it. It's a pit with like a little bit of plum. It's so good though. They're really good with beer.
I don't drink beer anymore, but
Wow, but they're so good.
they are so good.
Thoughts?
It's so salty.
They're so salty.
I'm salivating so much.
I know. Well,
This is gonna make some great sound.
mm-hmm.
Oh fuck. I feel like this is something that ASMR people probably have used these.
Maybe. I love them for a weird way. I'm also addicted to salt. So
Well, it seems like a sunflower seed sort of deal. You know,
I can
like
see that.
people aren't fucking sitting there chewing on sunflower seeds because they like want to get nutrition out of them. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's kind of making my mouth feel weird.
I'm gonna spit it out.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw it away.
Oh, I'm gonna keep mine in for you folks.
Enjoy. It's like all of the feedback in here. Oh, this is getting like juicy, both literally and figuratively. Where to go from here?
What you got on that notepad?
Well, it's mostly very, very vague things, but
Why are you gay?
that's all it says. Just a bunch of just why are you gay, multiple times. Yeah. Maybe we can.
Green tea and salted plums.
That's what like
Not
I've
a
got
good
some
combination.
spearmint tea, and it's I think I might have to wash it down with some of that. God, my mouth is so fucking salty right
You're
now.
welcome.
I really wanted to focus on the big idea that I wanted to come into this conversation with was the exploration part. And oh yeah, one of the questions that I was thinking of earlier while you were talking was, so there seems to be certain things that have, well, because you had mentioned that you tend to like get locked into something and like go down the rabbit hole for a little bit, and then you're like, okay, well, I'm done for different reasons and that sort of things. Why do you think music? Because I know like music and photography seem to be those like mainstays.
Who knows, man? Music. I've always been a fan of music. Grew up that way. My dad pushed it on us as kids, not like too hard, but definitely pushed music on us. He was a fan of music, and so it's just always been in our blood. My sister's a good singer. She used to play piano. So I don't know why that one stuck around, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah, because let me just ask this: how does music stay? How is music in your life now? Like, what? Give me a picture of that, because like I know for like in terms of like I know you're in a band, you know what I mean? But like, what? How is music weave its way into your life now?
It's less. It's in my life less. I'm more of the consumer now. I am in a band. Originally a drummer, switched to bass, which I really enjoy because I can stand up and it's just different, Drumming is fun. Don't get me wrong. I really miss it, but I just wanted to give something else a try. And bass is it's a marriage between drums and bass, so just seemed like the right place to go. So as far as that's how music is still in my life, but I don't do recordings anymore. I'll do the odd running of sound or odd recording every once in a while.
What do you mean by recording? Like that's give me a specific.
Like being the audio engineer and recording music.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the marriage between the bass and drums, because I actually learned that was even a thing from you, because I remember coming to the first time I came to one of your shows, and I think afterwards you had said, well, I'd noticed during that you were spending a lot of time like looking at the drummer. Um, and I remember talking to you afterwards. And also I would say that like, it's like the sound was a little off in general. Like it was like, I don't know, I can't describe sounds very well, but then I talked to you afterwards and you were like, yeah, we basically had to like keep like communicating like by nodding to each other or like keep, you know, with
and
your
just watching his sticks.
Yeah.
That way I can see his tempo.
Yeah. I imagine being a drummer probably helped a lot with that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's very, it is nice to be a drummer and be in a band where you're not the drummer. Because one, oh, this is so salty. One, hearing my two guitarists try to explain drum things to my drummer, we just look at each other and we laugh, and it's like these fucking idiots. They have no idea what they're talking about.
I love that.
Yeah, and two, you know, we have that bond. We know what we're talking about whenever we talk about a certain hi-hat clutch or something. You know, I know exactly.
You just spoke Chinese.
Exactly.
And I didn't know you knew Mandarin.
Guitarists know what it is, but like they don't, you know.
Yeah.
And so it's just that connection, that bond that we have. Both being drummers, I'm very much able to explain how I want a certain part. And nice thing is I can just say, hey, let me borrow your stick, and I'll play it, and he'll understand it. You know, versus hearing a guitarist go, you know, it's like boom, 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 and then the drummer's just like, what the fuck was that?
Drums don't make that sound.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's benefits for sure. And Jake's pretty good at picking up on those things.
Yeah, it's like y'all have your own, like y'all are just speaking not a different language, but you're able to
kind of.
Yeah.
Not really. Well, if you're talking about drums and bass, then yes, kind of. Because we're the rhythm section.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like other musicians, like classical musicians, most will be on the treble clef, and some will be on the bass clef, and it's the same piece of music, but it's they're reading different things, you know? Or to keep it in the classical thing, you know, a trumpet player, pretty much everybody is looking at notation on a staff. But percussionists, we don't, unless you're playing like bells or marimba or something like that, we have rudiments that we look at. So it's the same concept, but it's a different language, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm going to leave that to those who are listening that understand the language that you're talking, because I like every time, I feel like every other word I was like, what does that mean? What does that mean?
ADD's kicking in.
See, that's the language we speak mutually, you know, it's great. All right, so right now that's the music you're doing in your day-to-day in terms of making it.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I'd rather hear it in your words. Like what? Because you were in a band called the Ohms. Ohms the band?
Just Ohms.
Just Ohms? Okay. I get that confused with the
Ohms the
Instagram.
band. I mean, Ohms is taken.
Yeah.
So we had the band.
You got to do what you got to do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because, yeah, I think when I've told people about your band, and I've always been like, yeah, they're called the Ohms or Ohms. I don't like something like that. But it was awesome because I remember when you changed the name from the name that I still can't remember, even
Blue
though
Riviera.
Yeah, Blue Riviera, even though like that's been your name longer than Ohms. And you were like, I was like, why'd you change the name? You're like, people, like, I'd just gotten done, or no, I was like, why'd you change your name from? And you were like, that's why. I was like, that makes a lot of sense. But so you play bass in the Ohms.
Just Ohms. We're switching our names, guys. It's the Ohms now.
It's been decided, yes. That's just my brain. Many times throughout this conversation has gone to what lies between these cheeks. I laughed so long for that. When you said that, I was like, "Oh God!" And anyone listen?
Spit this out, man.
Oh yeah.
So salty.
Yeah, you fuck yourself by fucking doing that. You can see my P. Terry's.
Oh, Lord.
Great choice for podcast snack there.
I wanted to get your take on it because I used to eat those as a kid, and I hadn't found them in a while. I was at HEB and I just saw them. I was like, "What the fuck?" And picked them up. And was that me or was that you?
That was all me.
Oh, weird. Yeah, picked them up and wasn't sure if I was gonna like them, and then I just had one. And I was like, "Oh fuck yeah, I like them even better now." Oh yeah, that last one hit hard. I don't know why that hit hard, but at home I can just eat like 3 of those things in one sitting. Oh, so good. I'm addicted to salt.
Hey, enjoy what you enjoy, you know. Okay, so ohms, you play bass, and do you like? First, I'm curious for you to, or I'd like for you to like talk about like your role in the band and like what you do in the music making process.
Play bass. I don't
Okay.
make the music. That's Alex's thing. He'll come with a structure and then an idea, and then we'll all play it and play around with it, and then people will throw out ideas of maybe we should do this. Let's do this instead. And yeah, so it's really Alex's music. He comes with the structure and the idea, and we just build on it.
Do you do any music making outside of that?
No, not really. I've never been a writer of music. I wish I had been, but never been a writer. I'm just always a drummer, which I'm okay with. I wish I could write, but I'm okay with just following and adding my own taste, my own flavor to things.
Yeah. No shit. Got to have drummers.
Mm-hmm.
And so outside of the band, then, like you were saying that you were mostly a consumer. Like what? I don't know. Give me that broad overview of like what do you like to listen to?
Ooh. It'll be easier to say I don't like hip hop or rap.
Okay.
Or EDM or pop. There's some pop that I'll take.
I mean, it's catchy.
Not modern pop. Some
Okay.
pop that's considered from like back in, like Beat It would be considered pop.
Right, or like Britney Spears.
Fuck. I remember having such a crush on her. My sister had her first
Who
CD.
didn't?
Yeah, I was like 9 or some shit. I don't know when that first album came out.
What a wee lad.
I just remember staring at her CD and being like, "Oh, she's hot." But yeah, really listened to a lot of different things. I have Spotify, and I have one playlist. That playlist has. Can I check?
Yeah. No phones allowed.
No phone's allowed. Too bad. Let's see. I was listening to Requiem on my way here.
Yeah, I mean, that shit was bumping when you were pulling up.
All right, so I have one playlist with 88 hours and 25 minutes of music, and it's all over the place. It's like country, Latin, indie. It's all over the place.
How do you go about listening to it? Do you just put it on shuffle and let it rip?
Yeah, so I'll put it on shuffle and either just let it play and be content, or put it on shuffle and be like, no, not this one, no, not this one, no, not this one. And then when I come across a song, be like, oh, this is a good song. Man, this album was really good. Let me go to that album. So it's more of like, I suck at getting in the car and being like, who do I want to listen to? Because I'm really bad at coming up with things off the top of my head. So instead, I'll let my playlist just go through its thing. And then whenever I come across something, but oh man, yeah, that was a great song. Let me go to that album and listen to that album. Because I'm really an album guy. I don't listen to like singles.
Oh, what does an album do for you? Because you are also the owner of a vinyl record player and all that fun stuff. And
Yeah.
I've always seen that and been like, you're such a fancy boy.
I don't know why. I've always listened to albums. And when I say albums, I mean albums from start to finish.
Right.
I don't know. Once again, I can go deep and say because it's what the artist wanted us to do. It's a story. But not all that shit's a story. It's just how I used to listen to it. You buy a CD and put the Nirvana CD in, and it plays from start to finish. And then I got used to listening to the songs in that order. So, yeah. So I'm not a
Yeah.
huge fan of singles, and even like releasing singles, I'm not a huge fan of it. I get it for promotional points, but I'm very against releasing singles for the hell of releasing singles, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's where the world's going to these days, these damn kids.
Well, it sounds like that might be like maybe I'm taking a leap, a little jump here, but it's like the commercial
Yeah.
side of it kind of
Absolutely.
ruins the experience of the music.
Absolutely. I think a lot of it has to do with our fucking attention spans these days. You know, it's so short. I think just a single is just it's so hard to explain this. When I'm talking about singles, I'm talking about an artist no longer releasing albums, but just releasing singles every couple months.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, here's a little thing that's 3 minutes, have fun, versus like releasing an album. And some artists still do it, but mainly pop and hip hop, they'll do singles. I've just never been a fan of that. I want the whole thing. I want to experience it all from start to finish. Even if it's not a story, I want to be able to put it on and be in that mindset for a little bit, not just for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Do you think that the whole like listening to a whole album instead of listening to like maybe one or two songs off of an album, like obviously it's a different experience because it's longer, there's different, you're getting more or less and all that stuff, but what does that like whole experience do rather than those like single songs here and there?
well, if you're asking that question, I'm going to go towards more of the classic rock side of things.
Okay.
Because people would release singles back then, but those singles would be on an album. And listening to the album, I don't know, man, it's how they wanted you to hear it. They thought about how they're arranging these songs on this album because that's the way they wanted it. And sometimes it doesn't matter and sometimes it does. You can't listen to a fucking single from the wall. That's not true. Yeah, you can. But you can't just pull a random song off of The Wall, the album The Wall, and understand The Wall. You have to listen. It's a concept album, so you have to listen to the story the album is telling you or showing you or taking you through. And it's little things too. Like these artists think about transitions from one song to the next.
Mm-hmm.
And they put that in there on purpose. And, I want to be a part of that. I bought a Tom Petty Full Moon Fever record not too long ago. I grew up with the CD. And I remember as a kid, I'd play it. And then I had to ask my dad because halfway through the CD, we hear him come on and he says, "All right, folks, for those listening on record or tape, it's now time for you to stand up or sit down and flip the record or tape, and here's side two." And as a kid, I didn't really fucking know what he was talking about, But it was one of those things where I bought the record finally, and then I listened to it, and they didn't have that part on the record. And I was so upset because it's like I'm literally listening to the thing you're telling me to turn over, and you took that out of his record. He put that in there on purpose. He put that there for a reason. That should have been left there, Get off my front porch, kids. That's my feeling of it all. But yeah, that's I guess why I listen to full albums in length. I don't know, just to be in that mindset for that duration and not be as ADD as I am, be all over the place like my playlist.
Sure. It's funny as you're talking about this stuff. I see so much crossover between like photography and music for you. Like you're very detail oriented and like those like being intentional about those like little bitty things that you can tweak or like add some intention into that, like in the music.
Yeah.
And like in terms of like, and you need the full album to be able to look at those things. You need to be able to do the little bit of work in, or the little bit, the tedious like small things that you do in photography in order to get that full experience of the
Yeah.
of the whole thing.
I never thought about it, but yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah, I'm a little pattern
Yeah.
perceiving little boy over here.
You should have a notepad, and I should be laying on a couch.
Turns out that form of therapy sometimes is not the best for everybody, you know. But one of these days I'll be a different form of that,
Yeah.
you know. Hopefully, at least.
But yeah, I've never thought about that, but I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I guess this is I want to drop this question, and we kind of hinted at it earlier, but what if I were to ask you, how do you make meaning in your life? What does that bring to mind for you?
Fuck, I'd be a horrible politician. I'd be like Mitch McConnell, just staring off, trying to think of my answer. But I'd say just like trying to make myself happy. Meaning, I'd like to do something that lasts, but really, I just want to keep my head above water and be as happy as possible. Do the things that make me happy. If that makes sense.
It does make sense.
My parents are very much of the mindset of, they always quote Dave Ramsey. I don't know if you know who Dave Ramsey is.
I think,
He's a financial guy.
Okay. Yeah.
My parents are conservative, and they've always had that mindset of live like nobody now so you can live like nobody in the future, or some shit like that. Essentially what they're saying is, like, the way I see it is, don't spend money now, so that way you can have money in the future, and then live like, you know, while everybody else is working, you're comfortable, which I totally understand and appreciate. But at the same time, I could be dead tomorrow. So I don't know why I brought this up, but
hey, let it rock.
But yeah, so I have the opposite mentality. Not the opposite, because I do believe that, but at the same time, I want to travel, and I want to do things that make me happy now, because there's no telling, you know, what happens to me in a month or so, and that would suck. One of my biggest things was going overseas. That was like a big thing that my parents never did, and growing up, I was like, man, I want to do that, but I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to do that. And then finally I did it, and I just remember it was like a big thing for me. And I know it's not a big thing for most people, but it was a big thing for me. Like landing in Ireland, I was like, holy shit, I finally did it.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things, like, if I died tomorrow and I never went over there, I would have been a big bummer. I would have been dead. So, I mean, I wouldn't have cared. but it's just, but you know, it's just, it would have been a bummer to not do the things I want to do while I'm here, while I am able.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's amazing to hear. I love that. It sounds like you live very presently.
Yeah. I'd say. And that goes along the lines of Master of None. It's very much what has my attention then and there, and then who knows where I'll be in, you know, the future.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like to live for the present. I like to live for the future too, but for the most part, when we're talking about happiness, I like to live for the present.
Yeah. I almost think of it like a Venn diagram of sorts, where the middle is the present, the outer sides are the past and the future. It's like they might shift a little bit, but for the most part, like, living in the present is like, should be the, maybe I don't want to use the word should, but for at least me, and it sounds like for you, that it should be like mostly present.
Yeah.
So you still think about the future because you got a plan. You think about the past because you want to learn from shit, but all the important shit's happening now.
Yeah.
And you can do stuff with.
For sure. I like that. Hey, did you want to start recording soon?
I figured we would just sit there and whisper into each other's ears because this has been pretty great.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
A little long warm up.
Yeah, you know, wouldn't that be some shit? That is like a nightmare of mine that we have this like beautiful long conversation and then I didn't hit record. I mean, regardless.
I've been there.
Yeah.
With music. I've been there to where something happens and something's not recording. And then like the perfect guitar line comes on. I was like, God damn it. And then I've been that guy, and every engineer's been that guy to where they don't admit it. They're like, oh, you know what? There was a noise or something. Let's try that again. But really, it was like, I forgot to hit record. You know, that type of shit. But
you're just outing all the all the engineers.
Yeah.
To my vast audience. You know, I feel like that's a good place to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I feel like this is, I don't know. It's like when I talked to Alex as well, I was like, I said right in the beginning, I was like, I'm so fucking nervous. And I don't know why I'm nervous to talk to someone I talk to all the time.
Yeah.
And then by the end, I was like, it just felt right. And then I went back and watched it. I was like, it looked like how it always feels. Just like, great. And I feel like this is going to be the same.
For sure.
I really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Of course.
One thing that I forget to do as a newly christened fucking podcast host is, do you want to shout out any IGs or plug things or anything like that? Because believe it or not, people do listen to this sometimes.
I want to thank Jesus.
Oh, good one.
And my mama. My Instagram for photography is emin_photos. No plane hit the Pentagon. I will put that in there for the record.
Okay.
It's been like 85 surveillance videos taken, confiscated, and we've been shown one that does not show a plane hitting the world or hitting the Pentagon. Just gonna throw that in there. Other than that, that's it.
That is the best way to end this episode that I could ever think.
With truth.
Hell yeah. There you go. Thank you, sir.
No
We're
problem.
gonna fucking oh my goodness.